Why don't you like my skin hands? I thought you'd like me taking it all off for you. Maybe soon I'll let you see my ears. I've had several requests to look at the people who all yell at each other at Speaker's Corner in London, and specifically the London Dawah Movement YouTube channel that does that. And I figure, hey, now that I have a little bit more time, I might as well start taking requests. Requests from Twitter, I mean, because if it's anywhere else, I'm probably not going to notice. Anyway, here's Imran Hussein to explain to us why we need his religion to have a healthy philosophy of life. He's talking with some atheist guy, but I'm going to cut out a lot of that side of the conversation so that I can respond to Imran's points myself. And I've cut out a lot of repetitive statements and parts that I don't see as necessary to the point. Of course, I've tried to keep the spirit of the points intact, but even so, if you want the full context, it's best to go look at the original video. That's in the description as always. So yeah, let's go.
When you go through something difficult in life, there's two ways you can react. When someone is hit by a trial or tribulation.
Whoa, hold up. Sorry to stop you when you haven't even got past the intro, but be careful with dichotomies, man. There tend to be a lot of different ways that you can react to a difficult situation, and I'm not just talking about the actions you can take, but I'm talking about the attitudes and perspectives that you can adopt. But the real reason I stopped you is, what's up with the Richard Spencer haircut? You all know who I mean, but I'm pretty sure if I say Richard Spencer, YouTube will think I make extremist content and Clockwork Orange me 6 months from now. I'm also pretty sure if I say extremist, YouTube will think I'm an extremist. So I'm just being careful.
Oh my god, what's happening? I can't deal with this. I've had enough. I'm fed up. I'm done.
Oh, you're fed up too, eh? Well, it's not going to get any better because YouTube's going off the rails on the crazy train. But when hard times come along, you can't just sit around saying, oh my god, what's happening? I can't deal with this. I've had enough. I'm fed up. I'm done. No, I'm not done. Because apparently, Mr. Hussein, there are only two ways to react, and the second one is to go, fine, life, you want to cause me problems? Well, I'm all about finding solutions. Finding solutions is my middle name. Logicked, finding solutions, Satan. Please don't make fun of me, I didn't choose it. Anyway, my point is, I'm trying to find an excuse to insert a gratuitous plug from my email list right here that you should subscribe to so I can show you my videos and you can watch them without YouTube's permission. Now this video right here is going to be the first one that I distribute through email, so if you haven't subscribed yet, well, you've probably already missed out on the first email, but you can get the next one. And just so you know, people on that list are going to get videos one day early. So you might want to sign up. list.logicked.com. Type in your email, click submit, you're done. Plug over, that's it. Wasn't so bad, right? Let's get on with the actual video you came here to see.
The other way is, I'm going to remain patient. The one that made me and made everything and made this trial is taking care of me. He's watching me, he is with me.
So, you can only think of two possible ways that a human being could respond to hardship, and those are them. Option A, freak out, give up. Or option B, decide that it's a trial from God and he's watching over you like a rat in a maze, and so you can patiently wait it out. That's it. There's no other possible thing that anyone could do. They couldn't, show some determination, not freak out and give up, but also not believe they're God's lab rat. They couldn't come up with a plan and work to fix the problem. Like, neither option even mentions that that's a possibility, interestingly enough. Hell, they couldn't even just patiently wait for the problem to resolve itself, like without believing in God. They couldn't just be like, well, it's a rainy day, but, the rain stops eventually. No, the only two options for any human being are don't believe in God and panic and give up, or believe in God and don't panic and wait for the problem to work itself out. Well, that's a productive mindset.
God says in the Quran, Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin, that God is with the patient. The word used is with. Obviously, we don't say God is literally physically with His creation, but in His knowledge and His power, He is with us when we're going through hardships, when we're patient, right? So if we have this understanding, it opens up a doorway, a reality which we didn't know before.
Okay. To me, it doesn't sound like you're trying to open up a new reality so much as like you're trying to open up a way to feel better during hard times, but have it your way. So the most important question about this, as I see it, is when you perceive this new reality, what exactly changes about the situation you're in? I'm pretty sure the answer is nothing at all. Like, regardless of how you think about the situation is still the situation. Without the God bit, you're in a bad situation. With the God bit, you're in a bad situation. The only difference in the latter case is that you believe God put you in that situation and he's sitting up there munching transcendental popcorn while he watches you struggle through, but that doesn't change what the situation is or how it plays out. Either way, whether you believe God done it or not, things are going to happen how they happen, so, unless you think believing in God actually has some impact on how the events transpire, that believing in God makes the problem sort itself out faster or something. I don't think that's where you're going with this, but we'll see.
What this does is, through a trial and tribulation, we can be patient through it, see it through, because after every hardship there's ease. That's another principle in the Quran. With every hardship there will be ease, right?
Sure, but I'm a little bit confused here, Imran. Where does the God thing come into this? You don't have to believe in God to realize that every bad situation is temporary. Most people go through a number of hard times in their lives, and the mere fact that there are various harder times separated by better times means it's not exactly rocket science to figure out that bad times are usually going to be temporary. And hell, even if your entire life is nothing but one long, terrible time, that hard time's still going to end when you die. This is such a basic concept that if you can't manage to figure that out with or without believing in a god, then in YouTube-friendly terms, you're not exactly, you're really extra special and you're just as capable as anyone else in your own unique way. There. Please don't delete my channel. Okay, comments seem enabled still. I don't see a warning screen. I'm still able to log in. Praise YouTube for its divine mercy.
And we know, because you literally, how old are you? 29. How many hard times have you had in life? You probably can't even count them.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah? But you've made it through them, yes? They've come to an end.
But they haven't come to an end though.
What,
There's
more
more hardships.
They know they are, but the specific ones come to an end, and then another one comes, and another one comes, yes?
Alright, so you assume that by 29 years of age, a person's going to have gone through a number of hard times, and the majority of them will have come to an end. You recognize this as a common pattern in life, and so you infer from past experience of hard times that hard times generally are temporary, and your expectation is that the atheist you're talking to is going to accept this as a fact despite his non-belief in God. Perfect. I'm going to remember you said that because I suspect that's going to come in handy later.
So the point is, for a Muslim, during a time of hardship, he understands what's going on, why it's happening, and he's patient through it, right? And he comes to the end of it a better, stronger person. But if someone doesn't have this understanding, doesn't have God, it's a very lonely place for, and I would agree to that. When you go through hardship, when you go through difficulties, you may have friends and support and family members and good community around you, but internally it's a very dark, lonely place because you don't know what's going on, you don't know if it's ever going to end, and there's no ultimate hope there.
So what you're saying is that a Muslim, or possibly just anyone who believes in a god, you don't seem quite sure which one you're talking about, so I'm just going to go with the basic theist-atheist distinction, I guess. Gotta give you as much leeway as I can. So when theists go through hard times, they know what's going on, which I guess is either that Space Ghost is testing you or a Jinni fell in love with you.
A sister, she was waiting at the bus stop and the jinn fell in love with her. She was walking through a park and the jinn followed her. She was waiting at the bus stop and the jinn fell in love with her and it actually possessed her.
Yeah, that guy clearly knows exactly what's going on. No unfounded superstitions there, but us non-Muslims, man. How can we possibly hope to figure out what's going on? Like, for example, say your country goes into an economic recession and you lose your job, so you take a minimum wage job and now you can't afford food and rent. What's going on? I can't figure this out. This is such a mystery to me. Well, no, it's not really, is it? If it was me, the big dumb atheist who doesn't know what's going on, in that situation, I'd say what's going on is I'm not making enough money because my job sucks and the economy sucks. And depending on my own history, maybe my education sucks, maybe my work ethic sucks, I don't know. But a bunch of things suck. And then I guess you, the big, brilliant Muslim theist guy, you know, for you, it's God holding you down and making you suffer to test you, you know, so he can find out what you're gonna do? 'Cause he doesn't know? In his omniscience? And as for whether it's ever going to end, well, yeah. And you and I know that because, to bring back what you said earlier from my back pocket, you recognize that atheists have gone through a number of harder times in life which have come to an end, and thus you don't just think it's possible that an atheist might be able to figure out that hard times are going to come to an end from past experience. You expect atheists to already assume that, and that's even though they don't believe in a god. And yet here's you saying that to know that it's going to come to an end, you have to believe in a god. I gotta say, you kinda shot yourself in the foot with that. But aside from you disagreeing with yourself from like a couple sentences earlier, how else might an atheist like me know that it's going to come to an end? Well, no particular state of the economy anywhere has ever lasted forever. And there's no reason at all to assume that the state of the economy that I'm in right now is the exception to that rule. All of a sudden, it's going to last forever. And meanwhile, regardless of what the economy's doing, I'm a human being. I can take action to improve my situation bit by bit going forward. So even if things are bad for like 10 years, that's 10 years worth of me trying to get out of the situation. I'll probably have made some progress. And in the absolute worst case, which I think is what you meant by ultimate hope, right? If your entire life winds up being terrible and after like 50 years of misery you die, but then at least you get to go to heaven and that's the ease after the hardship, right? Well, I also believe that bad experiences end when you die, and there's your worst case scenario, your ultimate hope. Your hardship has a maximum duration, and that's like 100 years. With you, it's a lot worse, because sure, you have the possibility of heaven, but you also have the possibility that after you die, you're going to be sent to hell for thousands or millions of years, if not eternity, even if you're a Muslim, for doing something a bit wrong or just because Allah feels like putting you there. Remember, he does what he wills. And personally, I find that way less hopeful than the idea that you'll just cease to exist again like before you were born. Now, I realize that the guy that you're talking to there, the atheist guy, he's refusing to agree with you on this idea that bad times end. He's kind of holding back on you. So maybe he doesn't realize it. Maybe he thinks about it in some other way. I mean, you haven't really asked him how he thinks about it. Or maybe he's not understanding what you're saying, and afterwards he does kind of concede what you're saying, so maybe that really was just it. Or maybe he just doesn't want to concede it because he feels like you're trying to back him into a corner. I mean, you got to admit, you do come off a little bit like you're trying to corner him. And there's nothing at all wrong with that. I do it too. But I'm just saying, maybe that's why you're not getting agreement from him.
Right? You can't have hope in an accident.
You can't have hope in... Say again, that was a little bit unclear.
You can't have hope in an accident.
You can't have hope in an accident. So that means an accidental universe, I guess? Honestly, I don't even see how that could have sounded right to you. Okay, so let's say the whole universe really is an accident, which kind of presupposes there's an incompetent god there or something, but I get what you're trying to say, so whatever. Does that make every state of, take your pick, war, the economy, grief, whatever, does that make every bad state permanent somehow? I mean, the whole reason you're in that situation is the universe changed in a process that's still ongoing. It doesn't make a difference if the change was deliberate or accidental, controlled or uncontrolled. The change still happened, and changes are still happening right now. That process that led to this state is still ongoing, and that means there's a good chance it's going to lead out of the state as well. So how would a lack of someone at the steering wheel of the universe imply that as soon as your life specifically starts to suck, every process in the world that led to that state of suckage suddenly stops changing completely and your life is never going to stop sucking again? What's that? Oh, it wouldn't? That's not what you meant to imply? Well, then since change remains possible, and actually inevitable, then why can't you have hope that things are going to change for the better? Hell, even in some absurd version of the universe where as soon as your life starts sucking for the first time in your entire life, the universe somehow locks itself into your life sucks now mode forever, that doesn't mean you're going to know that you're stuck forever in your life sucks now mode. Even in that ridiculous situation, you could still have hope that you're going to get out of it. So what you're saying right now makes no sense at all, man. I'd love to hear you try to justify this.
For example, you may have a chain of 4 hardships in a row. And after those 4 hardships, for example, your mother may die, your father may die, you may lose your job all in 1 month. Yeah? But then there will be a period where there will be good times.
Right, and when those hardships happen, you know what's going on. People died and you lost your job. It's not complicated. And as you say, once you manage to move past the hardship, there will be better times. Most likely. I mean, there's an implicit probably on all of this, because like the guy said before, well, I'll let him speak for once, because I haven't let him do that once yet, I don't think.
You can just keep facing hardships until the day you die.
No doubt, bro.
So yeah, you might not get to experience good times after hard times. You might just experience nothing. But let's not be too literal. I think we're on the same page that sometimes hard times happen, but things tend to get better afterwards. It's kind of a rule of thumb. It's not really like a law of the universe or something, but it's something that most people could fairly easily agree on from their life experience. Generally.
We're talking
There's
about
going to be good and bad times.
Hard times, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, you will go through hardship.
Yes, and that's a basic fact of life that most people understand quite thoroughly, so why are you simultaneously saying that only theists can understand that hard times won't last forever, but also saying that atheists understand that hard times won't last forever? These are contradictory statements. You can't have both. Pick a position and stick with it, please, because your flip-floppery every other sentence is starting to get really annoying.
This life has a reason behind it, which is not supposed to be rosy and paradise. That's to come. This life, there will be hardships, there will be trials, but when you get through this, when you get to the other side, it won't even feel like a moment.
Oh, believe me, when you die and that process that is your consciousness stops, any hardships are certainly not going to feel like a moment, because nothing is going to feel like anything. But let me propose something here that might just blow your mind. You don't need to die for the hard times to diminish in your mind. As you move forward past some bad thing and you let the years and the decades slide by, those hard times are going to most likely feel less and less immediate, less intense, less prolonged. If you have like 5 years of unhappiness in your 20s, for whatever reason, you're not going to be sitting there in your 70s reliving every moment of that. You're not going to be suddenly having a 5-year-long flashback where every excruciating instant is relived. Sure, you might think back on those times, but the duration of the thoughts you have about them are going to be nothing like the actual years that you experienced. There's no need to invoke the afterlife for this. Death is not the only healer. And Imran, that kind of thinking can drive people to suicide. You should be careful when you promote that kind of stuff. But I guess that's why you guys had to put in a no suicide rule, right? When your entire business model involves making people long for death, you gotta have a heavy counter motivation.
And also, if you have the right understanding of what's happening and the right connection with your creator and the right philosophy behind everything, you can get through these things in the correct way, right?
Well, I can agree with that a little bit. If you understand what's happening to you and you have the right philosophy, you'll probably have a much easier time getting through hard times and making them come to an end sooner, too. If we go back to that jobless scenario, if you get laid off but you don't understand that it's because the company was having serious financial problems, and it was just that your role wasn't business critical, it was nothing personal. If you don't know that, you might be a lot more likely to fall into the trap of despair because now you feel bad about your own abilities, for example. And if your philosophy is when bad things happen, it's terrible and the whole world is out to get you and you might as well not even try to make things better and everything's just gonna be bad forever, you'll probably have a much harder time than someone whose philosophy is, yeah, bad things happen sometimes. It'll be over with at some point, but I'm not waiting around for it to fix itself. And then they take stock of the situation and make and execute a plan. But Imran, none of this in any way requires a belief in a god. As you say, believers and non-believers alike experience hardships and we're still here. You're talking to an atheist right now in your video. I'm talking to you. I'm 29 just like the guy in the video. We've lasted this long despite you assuming that by 29 years old the person has had a number of hard times. And that means that somehow, just like you managed to deal with it, so do we. And I have no doubt that your belief actually does help you because that's the tool that you've chosen to help you avoid that trap of despair and self-pity. And just because someone doesn't use my exact tools doesn't mean they have no tools. But it seems like you've failed to recognize that, which I have to say makes you sound like you have a serious lack of insight into human nature. And that doesn't really encourage me to take you seriously when it comes to life advice.
Because no doubt there are people who go through hardships, right? And they don't really know God, or they're not connected to God, or don't know anything like this, just living their life. And it breaks them, it destroys them. It may not kill them, but they may eventually look at the wisdom behind it and may develop as a person, but at the time it really damages them, right?
So just to be clear here, is there any devout Muslim, fully connected to God and all that, who in the entire history of Islam has ever been affected so badly by an event that you would characterize them as being destroyed by it? Or would such a thing cause you to automatically and very conveniently label them as people who were never really connected to God in the first place? See, I just can't buy into this idea that there are whole classes of people entirely exempt from a certain kind of human experience just because of what they believe. But that does sound like what your sentence is meant to imply. Now, as I said, of course there are certain ideas that can help strengthen someone's ability to cope, to increase their likelihood that they can. But that's really different from saying that all the people who are destroyed by terrible experiences just weren't connected to God well enough.
So what Islam does is that it addresses the human on a rational level, but also on a spiritual and emotional level, right? So it gives the human being the tools to go through everything in life. That's something very beautiful and profound about Islam, right?
Spiritual and emotional? I think you repeated yourself there. But anyway, there's just no way for me to buy into this idea that Islam is the only way to rationally and emotionally hold yourself together. Mostly because not only do I have my own ways to do it that are totally independent of Islam, but I've seen plenty of other non-Muslims get through some really serious shit with great heroic attitudes. So, I think you got some tunnel vision going on, man. You see Muslims using Islam to keep themselves afloat, and you hear them telling you that other people have nothing to keep themselves afloat, and you just accept it, without actually taking a look around, talking to people. Like, genuinely talking to people, not just trying to one-up them at Speaker's Corner. Try thinking of this from the opposite perspective. Say you have some hardcore atheist in a horrible, prolonged cancer battle, and the entire way through, they have good humor, they're out doing whatever they're capable of doing, trying to help people, living life to the fullest. Not destroyed in the least, just facing the monster, refusing to back down. And now let's say that I point to them and I say, see, they're an atheist. So clearly Muslims are incapable of facing hardship because that person's atheistic philosophy of life is giving them the tools to go through life. That's something very beautiful and profound about atheistic life philosophies. I'd sound like a lunatic, wouldn't I? Yeah, well, But that's all I'm going to address from this video, because after this you veer off onto the problem of evil, and I'm just not interested. So if you enjoyed this video, I really recommend that you visit list.logicked.com and sign up to my email list so you can see all my future videos without relying on YouTube. Because even if you subscribe here, which you still should, because that still is valuable, but you're still not necessarily going to see that my video is even out. YouTube's really bad for notifications. With the email list, you will. And if anything bad ever happens to my channel, which unfortunately has been increasingly regular with other people's channels lately, at least I'll be able to upload my stuff to some other video site and send those out through the email list and still be in touch with you guys. Plus, as an incentive, you get the videos one day early. So, I don't know, you can post all your first, second, third comments on all my videos or whatever. And speaking of which, if you really like my videos, consider supporting me on Patreon. These people that you're seeing on the screen are my $5 and up patrons, and they formerly got each video one day early, but they're gonna start getting each video 2 days early, because they still need their perk, so they get that extra day. It's only fair. So I'll see you all on the next video, which will probably be a response to Venom Fang X, believe it or not, who's back on YouTube after all this time. It'll be just like the old days of YouTube. Anyway, see ya.